On this edition of Issues and Insiders, we meet with a Korean lawyer who has been elected to the International Criminal Court's bench of 18 judges for a 9-year term that begins this year. Welcome to Friday's edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sunhee. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with a lawyer at the bar here in Korea who is poised to become a judge at the bench over at The Hague. I have Dr. Paek Kee-bong here in the studio with me. Welcome to the studio and congratulations on your latest career advancement.
Thank you. Thank you for the congratulations, and then thank you for inviting me.
Most welcome, Dr. Paek. Let's begin then with a few words about your current feelings as you look to start a 9-year term, I believe, at the ICC this year.
Well, it's a very challenging job. But first of all, I feel great honor and privilege that I was elected as the third Korean judge to the International Criminal Court, ICC. But moreover, my election means it's a global acknowledgement of our country, Korea's the international standing and status. So, and then as well as the advanced standards of international law and developed judicial system of Korea. So, well, in this regard, I feel a great honor and then, well, immense pride, but as well as a profound sense of duty for the ICC. So actually, I was elected I was nominated by our government as an ICC judge candidate about 1 year ago. And during this time, for the past 1 year, I engaged with numerous diplomats and lawyers from around the world. And this opportunity served as a platform for me to present myself and express my vision and commitment. But it also was a good opportunity for me to grasp what the international community wants for me and then wants for our Korea to do for the implementation of the international criminal justice. So, and also as someone from the older generation in Korea, I feel my country, Korea, is a recipient of the aid from the global community. But during this campaigning, I found and I recognized that now Korea has developed and transitioned to a country which should contribute to the global stage and to the global community. So in this regard, I feel a great pride and also sense of duty to contribute to the implementation of the criminal justice and the well-being of the global society by the working in the International Criminal Court.
Right, of course. And speaking about that, I understand candidates from 13 countries were involved in the election that is, to fill, is it 6 judicial vacancies?
Yes.
And you, Dr. Paek, received 83 votes out of 123. How did you seek to appeal to the voters?
Well, I try to emphasize that I have various experiences as well as the academic achievement. So first of all, I worked as a prosecutor for 22 years and also worked as a private defense attorney for 10 years, which means that I have a very extensive experience in the field of criminal justice. And in addition, I used to work in the UN ODC, UN Office on Drugs and Crime twice for 5 years in total. So first at the Vienna headquarters of UN ODC, and second at Bangkok office, Regional Center for Southeast Asia and Pacific of the UN ODC. That during this time, I got to know how to work with international civil servants. And third, but lastly, I studied international law. So I got the LLM Master of Laws degree at Columbia Law School in New York, and I focused on the function of the ICC prosecutor. And later on, I got the PhD in Korea by way of writing a dissertation on the evidence law of the International Criminal Court. So in sum, I emphasize the 3 aspects: the experience in the criminal judicial area, and then the working experience in the international agency, and academic knowledge. So I think this was very helpful for me to express myself and introduce myself to the lawyers and diplomats. However, I don't think that this, well, the individual candidate's qualification will be everything to win an international election. Because I think that my election was largely influenced by the global community's understanding and recognition of the Korea's contribution to the ICC. Because Korea has been contributing consistently and continuously for the ICC, ranging from the active participation in the discussion for the Rome Statute, which is the founding treaty for the ICC, and also all the way to the discussions and contribution to the establishment and operation of the International Criminal Court. And also, I think the international community recognized the role that Korea has been playing and Korea is to play for the implementation of the international criminal justice. So I think the international community has appraised my capacity and my qualifications to embody such a role at the International Criminal Court.
Right, indeed. And speaking about your qualifications, so you worked as a prosecutor and a lawyer. What more, Dr. Paek, can you tell us about the merits of this particular reality of having experienced both as a prosecutor and a lawyer in enhancing perhaps your role now as a judge at the ICC?
Well, I worked as a prosecutor for 22 years, which means I conducted a number of investigations on various crimes, such as crimes of murder, assault, and sexual violence, as well as asset crime. And during this period, I also implemented the protection programs and assistance programs for victims and assistances. So I have an experience on the one side as a prosecutor, but on the other hand, I worked for 10 years as a private attorney in the Kim and Jong, and I gave a legal assistance to suspects, the offenders, although they are alleged to make a crime, but also assisted victims and witnesses who are to testify at trial, or who are to file complaints in the investigation agencies. So during this period, I think I emphasized to the voters that I can look at the cases from both perspectives. One, from the prosecutor's viewpoint, and the other one is the defense attorney's viewpoint. And it helped me to understand a case from a bird's eye view. And then I can understand the opposing standpoints from both parties. And this will definitely help me to understand the sufferings of the suspects as well as the victims. And this would help me to fully recognize how to manage the trial very effectively and very fairly, and make a judgment independently and with fairness.
Right. And before we delve any further into your personal story, could you tell us a bit, Dr. Paek, about the International Criminal Law, which you mentioned, International Criminal Court, that is, which you mentioned earlier, and its specific role?
Yes. Well, the International Criminal Court was established 20 years ago in The Hague, Netherlands. And its main mandate is to punish individuals who committed serious violations of international law, such as genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, and crime of aggression. And it also provides support and assistance to victims of such serious crimes. So this International Criminal Court is composed of three main bodies. The Office of the Prosecutor, the OTP, which is totally independent and in charge of investigation and prosecution. And the second one is the Judiciary, which manage the trials and make judgments, to which I belong. And the third, the Registry, which manage the administrative functions of the court. So these three main bodies will cooperate and coordinate under the one roof of the International Criminal Court. So up to now, there have been many cases, and there's several individuals were punished in relation to the conflicts in some countries. And the sentences have reached up to the 30 years imprisonment. And finally, well, we have to note that there are three ways that the jurisdiction of the ICC will be exercised. So there are three scenarios in which the ICC can exercise jurisdiction. The first one is the state party to the Rome Statute, the ICC founding party. A state party can refer a situation case to the International Criminal Court. And the second one is that UN Security Council can also refer the situation to the International Criminal Court. And the third one is that the ICC prosecutor, OTP, can initiate investigation, but upon the pre-authorization by the pre-trial chamber. So this is a brief explanation of the ICC.
Of which we're very grateful, Dr. Paek. Could you walk us through your interest in international criminal law? You talked about how you work briefly with the UN Office on Drugs and Crime.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about your personal interest in international criminal law.
Yeah, well, it takes me to 30 years ago when I was young. So in 1992, I started working as a prosecutor. But before I started working at the prosecutor's office, I studied international law at the graduate school. However, after a few years of hard working at the prosecutor's office, well, the international law was no longer at the forefront of my life. The investigation was all that I have to focus on. But in 1997 and 8, I was given a chance to study abroad by the support from the Ministry of Justice. So as I mentioned earlier, I studied in the Columbia Law School, New York for 1 year. And luckily and fortunately, at that time, the statute for the ICC was being discussed at the United Nations. So naturally, I learned about the ICC. Oh, wow, this is very interesting. And this is something that I have to focus on. So I wrote an essay about the ICC, particularly the independence of the ICC prosecutor, because at that time I was still working as a prosecutor. So the independence of the ICC prosecutor was a fascinating issue to my mind.
Do you even imagine that you'd later become a judge there?
Well, that is just a starting point for me, but it will be helpful to work as a judge on the experience of my working as a prosecutor and then defense attorney. Anyway, well, at some point in time, people seem to discover, or people seem to be given a lifetime mission, and mine may well be maybe the international criminal law. So when I returned from the U.S. and when I finished the work studying at the law school, and I started working in the Ministry of Justice, and I dealt with the ICC-related matters. In particular, I made a draft implementation bill for Korea's ratification of the ICC Rome Statute. So based on my draft implementation bill, our country, Korea, ratified the Rome Statute. And later on, when I returned to the prosecutor's office, I was selected as a government representative for the ICC Statute Review Conference, which was held in Kampala. And also I continuously studied the international law and got a PhD degree. So, well, I think the honor that I have been elected as an ICC judge last month was a result of this thread of international law running through my whole life.
Right, indeed. Let's move a little bit now into the actual work that you have for you ahead. Dr. Paek, back in March last year, the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin on allegations of mass abductions of Ukrainian children. I understand it's an ongoing case and you cannot delve into too much details, but what can you share with us?
Well, thank you for your understanding. So as a judge-elect, I can just say general comments about the current issues. And with regard to the arrest warrant you mentioned, this is my understanding based on the explanations given by the ICC. First of all, we have to take note that in this Russia-Ukraine situation, Ukraine is not a state party. It's not a state party, but it accepted the jurisdiction of the ICC. So Ukraine declared the acceptance of the ICC jurisdiction. So although Russia is not a state party, but crimes, ICC crimes committed in the territory of Ukraine, which declared acceptance, can be the targets of the ICC jurisdiction. That's why and that's how the ICC is looking at the situation and investigating the alleged crimes which were allegedly committed in Ukraine. And second of all, this is notable that ICC crimes, so those four categories of crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crime of aggression, those crimes, the statute of limitation are not applied in the ICC. So once arrest warrant is issued, it is effective. It is effective permanently because it doesn't have a statute of limitation. And third, we have to note that the state parties to the Rome Statute, currently 124 states are members of the ICC, and those state parties have a strict obligation to cooperate with the ICC, which means that if there is a request from the ICC to a state party, then these state parties should cooperate and should implement any request from the International Criminal Court. So based on these three basic principles, I think ICC is working and looking at the situation, and I believe the OTP, Office of the Prosecutor, is getting information and evidence to assess whether any crimes under jurisdiction of the ICC are being committed in the Ukraine.
Right. And moving beyond Ukraine, Dr. Paek, back in November, South Africa, which I believe is a member of the ICC, referred Israel to the court on allegations of war crimes in Gaza. Israel, for its part, which is not a member, has accused the Palestinian militant group Hamas of similar war crimes, of course. What are your thoughts on the tragedy, Dr. Paek, unfolding in Gaza amid the fresh fighting between Israel and Hamas?
Yeah, personally, I feel very sorry about the alleged crimes and tragedy which is happening in Israel as well as the Palestine. But from the judge-elect perspective, I can give a general comments about the situation as I explained about the Ukraine-Russia situation. So with regard to Israel-Hamas situation, we have to take note that Israel is not a state party to the Rome Statute. However, Palestine is a state party to the Rome Statute. And this means that any ICC crimes which are committed in the territory of Palestine, or any crimes which are committed by Palestine people, nationals of Palestine, can be the targets of the ICC jurisdiction. So we know and I believe the Office of the Prosecutor of ICC is collecting evidence in relation to this situation based on this principle that Palestine is a state party, so Palestine people can be the targets of the investigation, and also any people of the state party or non-state party can be the targets of the investigation when those crimes were committed in the territory of the Palestine.
Right, and once again, that is an ongoing case. So,
sure.
Dr. Paek, here on the Korean Peninsula, what role could the ICC play with regard to better addressing human rights violations up in North Korea?
It's a pity that we have to think about the situation in North Korea, but North Korea is also not a state party. It's not a state party to the Rome Statute, which means that, well, as I explained to you, there are three ways that ICC can exercise jurisdiction. The first one is the state party's referral. The second one is the OTP, or the ICC prosecutor's investigation. But these two ways cannot be applied because North Korea is not a state party. But the only way that ICC can exercise jurisdiction on North Korea is the UN Security Council's referral to the ICC, which is not happening yet. So that means that currently, as of now, it's difficult for the ICC to exercise jurisdiction on the alleged violations of international human rights law or humanitarian law. But from South Korea's perspective, it is worthwhile to collect and analyze as much information and material and evidence as possible, because we don't know, because the international politics is inherently fluid and unpredictable. So nobody can foresee when and what kind of change can happen, right? So South Korea should prepare for such a scenario by way of collecting and analyzing the information evidence. And if something happens, if some changes happens, and ICC can exercise jurisdiction, and those preparations will be helpful for the ICC's operation on those alleged violations.
All right, because the universal understanding is preparation is better than cure. So, Dr. Paek, could you share with us some of your future plans as the judge of the ICC, starting from March, I believe, this year?
Well, ICC has been working for the past 20 years, and there have been much criticisms. And for example, the focus of the investigation and punishment has been on the African countries. And the selection of the cases and selection of the situation has not been fully conducted transparently and consistently. And third of all, the trials have been too much long and too much protracted. And I believe I understand that ICC is in the process of making further efforts to overcome these challenges. But amidst these devastating instances occurring in the Ukraine and Russia and in some other regions, the international community really wants and anticipates that ICC should play a more active and progressive role for the international peace and justice. So I think there must be some more active approach by the ICC to cope with and to solve the issues so that they can give a deterring effect and preventive effect so that those kind of tragedy will not happen again. And from my perspective, I can think of the practical challenges which should be overcome by the ICC. For example, the efficient and then effective management of the trial process should be ensured. And also the providing effective reparations to victims should be also guaranteed. And finally, the appropriate checks and balances, even within the International Criminal Court ICC, should be more pursued. So I think it will be a great honor, for my personal honor, to make contribution towards tackling these practical challenges and ultimately implementing the international criminal justice and by contributing to the well-being of the whole international community.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. And hopefully when your term ends, I believe that will be 2033, you'll be back here with us talking about your contributions to the ICC.
I hope so. And then I'm sure I can do that.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure and honor.
Right, well, that ends this week's editions of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend and see you same time next Monday.